Well, greetings, vinyl community. I'm back with another video in my series of 50-year-old albums that have been in my collection since 1969. And today we have a double header. Yes, you get two, or since we're in the 60s, two for the price of one. And we're starting off with Best of Cream. This is an album that was released in July 1969. I got it when it was new. And this is my original copy. The front cover artwork of this is by the artist Jim Dine. And the back cover photograph by Jim Marshall finds the band posing in the Sausalito Hotel in San Francisco in 1967. This album is basically a collection of the band's American singles. Most of the tracks were released as either an A or a B side in the USA. One exception is Born Under a Bad Sign, taken from the Wheels of Fire album. But the album kicks off with the band's biggest American hit, one of their two top 10 hits, Sunshine of Your Love. And of course that features dual vocals by Eric Clapton and Jack Bruce trading lines and then singing together in the chorus, and the guitar solo that very conspicuously quotes Blue Moon. And that is from the band's second album, Disraeli Gears, which is well represented on this album. Unlike the band's fourth album, Goodbye, which provides only one song here, Badge. And that song is co-written by Eric Clapton and George Harrison. George Harrison was not credited on the Goodbye album as one of the songwriters. It was credited to Eric Clapton alone, but George Harrison is credited on this release. George Harrison also plays rhythm guitar on the song, and on the Goodbye album was credited as L'Angelo Misterioso, the mysterious angel. Here is a single release from Germany of Badge. I have a number of European singles to show, illustrate that these songs were indeed hits. Next track is Crossroads, live recording from Wheels of Fire. And that ends with the announcement that Eric Clapton is doing the vocal, and kind of led me to believe at the time that Eric Clapton was the singer for Cream, and it took me a little while to catch on to how much Jack Bruce was responsible for what I loved about this band. And that is, of course, a cover of a Robert Johnson song, and here is the single release from Germany, backed with a studio track from Wheels of Fire, Passing the Time. And the next song is one of the only two songs that I knew when I bought this album, the other top 10 single by Cream, White Room. And this version has the single edit. So the last verse is missing. It fades out during the guitar solo. It does fade a little abruptly at the very end. So when I did hear the full version on the Wheels of Fire album, that made it a special treat because that song was a great favorite. One interesting thing about the song White Room is the instrumental intro, which recurs during the body of the song, is in a 5/4 time signature, which is an unusual meter that will pop up a couple of other times in Cream's oeuvre. And final song on side one is SWLABR, which stands for She Walks Like a Bearded Rainbow. Madness, lyrically, by Peter Brown, Jack Bruce's lyrical collaborator, and an interesting musician in his own right. Forgot to show White Room single with, again, Those Were the Days from Wheels of Fire on the back. Moving on to side two, Born Under a Bad Sign, studio track from Wheels of Fire, a cover of the song written by Booker T. Jones and William Bell and famously recorded by Albert King. creating an edit here because I didn't think to pull the album Born Under a Bad Sign by Albert King, featuring the wonderful cover artwork by Loring Utemi. Okay, this is followed by Spoonful. This is a cover of the Howlin' Wolf song written by Willie Dixon and was released on the first album, Fresh Cream, in the UK, but left off the US version of the album. The US version substituted I Feel Free, and instead they released Spoonful as a single. It being a very long track, it was split over two sides of a single. So this was the first time the song had been released in its intact form in the USA. Very, very torrid performance by Cream, Jack Bruce playing the harp, and a false ending that the first time I heard it, I just jumped. And I think I was like one of those cartoon cats where the cat gets a scare and ends up hanging from the ceiling by his claws. Next up is Tales of Brave Ulysses, another song from Disraeli Gears. Marvelous showcase for Eric Clapton's wah-wah guitar work, and B-side, actually, of Strange Brew, as seen on this German single. Next up is indeed Strange Brew, and that's a song with an interesting history. The track was originally recorded as a cover of a Muddy Waters song, Lawdy Mama, and Atlantic Records wanted to push Eric Clapton as being the star of the band. So they had Felix Pappalardi doctor that song so that the band would record Eric's composition Strange Brew on top of the already recorded backing track. So that's what they did, and Jack Bruce has pointed out that it doesn't fit 100% because there's a chord change in Lawdy Mama that doesn't occur in Strange Brew. So at one point at the beginning of each verse, the bass line is wrong. Jack was not entirely a happy bunny about that. And finally, I Feel Free, that song that was added to the first Cream album in the USA and was released on this on this Norwegian single, if I can get my fingers around it correctly. So there was one American single that was omitted from Best of Cream, and that's Anyone for Tennis. Here is a Norwegian single of that, or possibly Danish. Discogs says Norwegian. Anyone for Tennis appeared on the soundtrack album for a biker movie called The Savage Seven. Apparently in the movie itself, they use a different recording of the song, not Cream's original, but the Cream version appears on the soundtrack LP and was also released as a single and did chart. I think it was left off of Best of Cream because they wanted the album to focus on the band's heavy image. They wanted to have the hard-rocking, blues-based music of Cream, and Anyone for Tennis is a very poppy song with recorders and acoustic guitar and doesn't have anything at all to do with the blues. This was the 6th album I ever owned. I don't remember where I got it. It was a store that I have a mental image of, which may be completely imaginary, but doesn't match any store that I remember otherwise. And I was actually planning to buy the Beatles' Magical Mystery Tour, and found this first, and ended up getting both. I'm not sure how I was able to afford 2 albums at once, but I did for the first time, and very glad I did because those are 2 very, very great albums. Released a month after Best of Cream was Blind Faith, featuring 2/3 of Cream, Eric Clapton reuniting with Ginger Baker whether he wanted to or not. Apparently This began as a series of jams between Eric Clapton and Steve Winwood, whose band Traffic was on a hiatus at the time. And Ginger Baker sort of dropped by and said, "Hey, I guess my invitation got lost in the mail, but aren't you glad I'm here? I'm your new drummer." They carried on with him and acquired Rick Gretsch from Family, who deserted his band in the middle of a tour, and became the quartet that you see here. This, of course, is the clean version of the album cover. I'm sure everyone's seen the nude version. I never liked that. I mean, I like to see a pair of naked boobies as much as the next pervert, but that cover just doesn't look appealing to me and doesn't seem fitting to the music. The colors are so bright and oversaturated. The girl looks dazed. It just doesn't look right for an album that's really got kind of a solemn feel, a lot of gravitas, and I like this sort of old-timey sepia image much better. I think it's much more fitting to the sound of the band. This photograph was taken at Eric Clapton's home, an estate called Hurtwood Edge, where the band did their rehearsals. The album begins with Had to Cry Today, and this features a very stark sound with just guitars, bass, and drums. It's got a very heavy riff to begin with, based on the pentatonic scale. You start with your basic major scale, and you leave out 2 notes. You come up with this. And that's the major pentatonic scale that you hear all the time in imitations of Oriental music. If you start with the minor scale and you take out the corresponding 2 notes, you get this. And that's the minor pentatonic scale that Had to Cry Today is based on. The minor pentatonic scale combined with Ginger Baker's very heavy on the tom-toms drumming always made me think that that song had kind of a Native American tribal feel to it. So the song is very heavy on the guitars. You get a great showcase for Eric Clapton soloing during the first half of the song. During the second half, both Clapton and Winwood play in duet with their guitars intertwining. Second song is Can't Find My Way Home. Bit of a change of pace, still guitar-based but acoustic this time. A very yearning ballad, wonderful ghostly vocals from Steve Winwood, particularly in the out chorus. I used to be in a band, a duo, called Stumbling Grace, and we did a flute and acoustic guitar version of Can't Find My Way Home. And I always made it a point when playing that song of closing my eyes while playing, and I was transported every time. And at the end of the song, I would open my eyes, and it was always a shock to be back in the gross world. Next song is Well Alright, cover of a Buddy Holly number. For the first time on the album, Steve Winwood switches to piano. There's a Leslied guitar sound. The album has a bit of a spookiness. It's not the good time feeling that you get from Buddy Holly himself. Still, this song was considered suitable for a single release. It was a single in Europe, backed with Can't Find My Way Home. Piano and Leslie combination again in the final song on side 1. Eric Clapton's only composition on the album, Presence of the Lord. And as that title suggests, it's a very hymn-like song. The Leslie effect on the guitar suggests an organ, very gospel-inflected vocals from Steve Winwood, and a solemn hymn-like chord progression until the instrumental break, and it just erupts into a volcanic solo by Eric Clapton. Fiery wah-wah madness that just blazes out of the... How many fire metaphors can I use in this? Just blazes out of the speakers and ends in a very bizarre way. It's, again, like if the solo is a volcano, the final drips of lava just fall over the transition into the hymn again. And the whole thing comes to an end with this kind of odd jazz chord. Flip the album over, and we're kind of back in church. Steve Winwood playing organ this time, wailing gospel vocals, gripping guitar riff into the main ballad body of the song, and a showcase in the middle, an instrumental break for Rick Gretsch, who plays a violin duet overdubbed with himself. So final track on the album is the very lengthy jam piece, Do What You Like. Remember when I said that 5/4 time signature would reappear? Well, it reappeared on the last song on the last Cream album, What a Bring Down, from Goodbye. And there's a similar kind of beat going on, that kind of Mission Impossible 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2, that kind of a 5/4 beat. The band chants the title Do What You Like over and over again, while each member of the band takes a solo, starting with Steve Winwood on the organ, into old Slowhand playing the guitar solo. And it does really run out of gas during Rick Gretsch's bass solo. Picks up again with Ginger Baker beating the hell out of his drums, and then the whole thing just collapses into a comedy ending with silly celebrity voices, chicken clucking, ringing bells, and that's your modicum of Bonzo Dog Band meets psychedelia for the album. Another interesting Cream 7-inch item that's related to the best of is this Japanese 6-song EP, Cream Best 6. It features White Room, Crossroads, Anyone for Tennis, Sunshine of Your Love, Tales of Brave Ulysses, and Badge. So all the songs but Anyone for Tennis did feature also on the Best of Cream album. But you also get the lyric insert with the lyrics as interpreted by Japanese record company employees who aren't too conversant with the English language. So I'm going to read you what they make of Tales of Brave Ulysses after a short slurp. You thought it latter in the winter, who brings you down forever, but you wrote upon the steamer to the violence of the sun. At the colors of the sea, find your eyes was tumbling mermaid, and you touched distance features, was tears of plain you listed. I was naked in the pasture, by the silent sweetly singing, for the sparkling waves of calling, for the sparkling ways of calling to her the white bracelet. And you see your girl's round body dancing through the turquoise, and her footprints makes you follow where the sky loves the sea. Actually got most of that line right. And when your finger is playing, she tries you in her body, calling deep blue river in the days she was off your mind. Tiny purple fishes run laughing through your fingers, and you want to take her with you to the hard land of the winter. And that was pretty close. Her name is Aphrodite. That's Afroditting. And she writes criticism and shell. And you know you cannot leave her, for you touched the distant sand with the tales always make it the way you listed, laughed, L-A-U-G-H-T, laughed or laught, by the silence sweetly singing. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching. Be well, and I'll talk with you again soon.